The massive Droo command station loomed like a crystalline nightmare against the stark darkness of space. Captain J. Park stood at the forward observation deck, his dark eyes scanning the alien structure with calculated precision. Beside him, Communications Officer Yuna Kim adjusted her universal translator, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency. The human delegation consisted of 5 carefully selected representatives, each chosen not just for their diplomatic skills but for their hidden capabilities. They were about to enter the heart of the most aggressive known galactic civilization, a species that had conquered and destroyed hundreds of planetary systems. Their ship, a sleek and seemingly unremarkable diplomatic vessel, glided smoothly toward the Droo's central communication hub. From the outside, it appeared fragile and insignificant, a deliberate design that masked extraordinary technological capabilities. As they approached, the Droo administrators began to assemble. Their bodies were not humanoid, but complex crystalline, structures that shifted and moved like living minerals. Multiple appendages extended from their central forms, each capable of complex manipulation and communication. The lead administrator, a massive entity named Krolix, emerged from the central chamber. Its crystalline form pulsed with an internal light that seemed to communicate complex emotional states impossible for human perception. "Humans," Krolix's translator buzzed, "you are permitted minimal communication." J. Park stepped forward. He was average height with short black hair and a face that revealed nothing. Years of special training had prepared him for this precise moment. Every movement, every word would be calculated. "We come with a warning," Jay said simply. The Droo administrators began a series of complex vibrations that translated to laughter. Their entire civilization had conquered hundreds of species. What could these small, fragile humans possibly warn them about? Yuna Kim stood slightly behind Jay, her hands hidden, her eyes recording every microscopic detail of the Droo's reaction. She wasn't just a communication officer. She was a highly trained intelligence specialist with capabilities far beyond traditional diplomatic roles. "Your warning is irrelevant," Krolix responded. The translator's mechanical voice carried absolute confidence. "We have analyzed your species. Your technological capabilities are primitive. Your defensive systems are minimal. Your planetary resources are limited." Jay did not react. His face remained completely neutral. "Nevertheless," he continued, "we warn you to reconsider your expansionist strategies." The Droo's crystalline structures began to pulse faster, a sign of mounting confusion and emerging irritation. No species had ever directly challenged them with such calm certainty. What the Droo did not know was that this diplomatic mission was merely the first phase of an extraordinarily complex plan. Every human in this delegation carried technologies and capabilities that would fundamentally challenge everything the Droo understood about warfare, intelligence, and survival. Krolix moved closer, its massive crystalline form towering over the human delegation. "Your warning means nothing," it communicated, the translator rendering its complex vibrational language into simple words. J. Park simply nodded. A slight, almost imperceptible smile flickered across his face for just a moment. "We understand," he said. The meeting would last precisely 17 minutes. 17 minutes that would change the entire trajectory of galactic civilization. 17 minutes that would mark the beginning of the most extraordinary confrontation in known space. The Droo believed they were observing a simple diplomatic mission. They did not realize they were witnessing the first move in a game they could not yet comprehend. As the human delegation prepared to depart, Yuna's hidden systems were already transmitting complex quantum-encrypted data. Each movement, each communication, was another layer in a strategy centuries in the making. Humanity's response to galactic threats would not be traditional. It would be something entirely unexpected. The Droo would soon learn that humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were something else entirely. Deep beneath the icy surface of Europa, a hidden research facility hummed with quiet intensity. Dr. Hoon Kim stood before a wall of holographic displays, his fingers dancing across quantum-encrypted interfaces. Around him, a team of scientists worked with laser-like focus, their movements precise and calculated. The facility looked nothing like a traditional research center. Its walls seemed to shift and change, adaptive technologies blending seamlessly with the environment. Each workstation was a marvel of human engineering, systems that could process more information in a second than entire planetary networks could handle in a year. Hoon understood something fundamental that the Droo had completely missed. Warfare was no longer about physical strength or traditional weaponry. It was about information, adaptation, and total system infiltration. On one screen, complex algorithms mapped the Droo's communication networks. Each line of code was a potential weapon, each algorithm a silent infiltrator waiting to strike. The team had spent years studying the Droo's technological infrastructure, identifying every possible weakness. "We're ready," Hoon muttered to himself, watching as specialized AI constructs began their delicate work. The preparation was not just technological. Across multiple star systems, human agents had been positioned strategically. They looked like ordinary people, workers, traders, scientists. But each carried technologies and capabilities far beyond what anyone could imagine. A young researcher named Min approached Hoon. Her hands held a small device that looked like nothing more than a standard communication chip. "The quantum entanglement protocols are stable," she reported. Hoon nodded. What seemed like a simple communication device was actually a complex neural network capable of distributing human consciousness across multiple platforms. The Droo believed in centralized systems. Humans were preparing something entirely different, a distributed adaptive intelligence that could exist everywhere and nowhere. Outside the facility, Europa's icy landscape remained unchanged. No satellites could detect the extraordinary work happening beneath the surface. Stealth was their primary weapon, invisibility their greatest strength. The team worked in shifts, each member understanding only a small part of the larger strategy. This was intentional, a protection against potential detection. If one part was compromised, the entire system could adapt and redirect. Quantum computers processed scenarios faster than any known technology. They weren't just calculating potential outcomes, they were creating them. Each simulation explored thousands of potential responses to Droo aggression. Hoon understood that humanity's survival would depend on something the Droo could not comprehend: the ability to transform, to become something entirely unexpected. Communication networks were mapped. Technological vulnerabilities were identified. Sleeper systems were activated across multiple planetary networks. Each action was a carefully placed piece in an extraordinary puzzle. The researchers knew they were not just preparing a defense. They were designing a completely new form of existence, a way for humanity to survive that went beyond traditional biological limitations. Hours passed. The facility continued its silent work. Complex systems communicated in languages that would appear as random noise to any external observer. Each transmission was a piece of a larger strategy. By the time the Droo would realize something was happening, it would be too late. Humanity was no longer just a species. They were becoming a distributed, adaptive intelligence that could exist beyond physical limitations. The final preparations were subtle. No alarms would sound. No traditional warning systems would activate. The transformation would happen so quietly that the Droo would not understand what was happening until it was complete. Hoon looked at the displays one final time. Everything was in place. The strategy that had been generations in the making was ready to be executed. Humanity was about to show the galaxy that survival was not about strength. It was about adaptation, intelligence, and the ability to become something entirely unexpected. The facility continued its silent work, a testament to human potential and the extraordinary capabilities that lay hidden beneath the surface. The moment began exactly at 1437 Universal Standard Time. Across multiple star systems, human populations simply disappeared. No warning, no signals, no traces. Krolix, the primary Droo administrator, first noticed the anomaly when tracking. Systems suddenly showed blank spaces where human settlements had existed moments before. Entire planetary colonies, gone. Research stations, vanished. Space settlements, erased. Military tracking systems went crazy. Thousands of data points simultaneously winked out of existence. It was like someone had taken a massive eraser and simply removed entire populations from reality. On Earth, in orbital stations, on distant mining colonies, humans were transforming. Their physical forms were becoming something else entirely. Not dead, not destroyed. Something in between existence and imagination. Communication networks buzzed with confusion. Droo monitoring systems detected 0 electromagnetic signatures. No explosion records, no radiation traces. Nothing that could explain such a massive disappearance. Tracking algorithms failed. Computer systems crashed trying to process the impossible data. Where millions of humans had existed seconds before, now only empty coordinates remained. The transformation was happening at a quantum level. Human consciousness was converting itself into a distributed network, no longer bound by traditional, physical limitations. They were becoming information, pure potential. Krolix watched the data streams with growing panic. Something was happening that defied every technological understanding the Droo possessed. Entire human populations were not just vanishing, they were converting themselves into something undetectable. Quantum entanglement networks activated. Complex algorithms began their silent work. What appeared as a disappearance was actually the most sophisticated technological migration in galactic history. Humans were not dying. They were evolving. On a distant research station, the last physical human researcher, Dr. Yuna Kim, completed the final transformation sequence. Her body shimmered, then dissolved into pure information. Her consciousness spread across multiple quantum networks, becoming something beyond traditional understanding. The Droo's massive intelligence systems could not comprehend what was happening. Their tracking technologies, designed to monitor and control, suddenly became useless. Humans had found a way to exist without existing. No weapons could target them. No invasion could reach them. They had become a concept rather than a physical presence. Krolix's communication systems began receiving strange, fragmented messages. Not threats, not warnings, just hints. Suggestions of a presence that could not be measured or understood. Entire human databases began shifting. Information became fluid. Boundaries between physical and digital dissolved. Humanity was no longer a species confined to biological existence. They were becoming a distributed intelligence, an adaptive network that could exist everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The vanishing lasted precisely 17 minutes and 42 seconds. When it was complete, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Droo stared at their monitoring systems in complete confusion. Humans had not been destroyed. They had not been defeated. They had simply transformed, and no one, not the Droo, not any other civilization, could understand how or why. The universe held its breath. Something extraordinary was happening. Humanity was showing that survival was not about physical strength, but about the ability to adapt beyond all known limitations. Where humans had existed, now only questions remained. Silent, waiting, watching. The first signs of collapse appeared quietly. Droo military installations began experiencing strange malfunctions. Navigation systems went crazy. Weapon protocols became randomly corrupted. Krolix watched in growing horror as systematic failures spread across their entire technological infrastructure. What seemed like random glitches were anything but random. Each failure was a precisely calculated disruption. On a massive battleship, targeting systems suddenly displayed impossible coordinates. Weapon arrays triggered without command. Communication channels dissolved into static. Entire fleet management protocols became unreliable. The Droo had never experienced technological vulnerability. Their systems had controlled multiple galaxies for thousands of years. Now something was systematically dismantling their most secure networks. Quantum infiltration happened silently. Complex algorithms moved through crystal-based communication systems like invisible water. Each system infected became another pathway for total network destruction. Military commanders watched in confusion as their most advanced technologies began failing. Defensive shields would randomly activate and deactivate. Propulsion systems would suddenly redirect without warning. Navigation computers displayed impossible star maps. What the Droo did not understand was that they were facing an enemy that did not fight traditionally. Humans had transformed themselves into a distributed intelligence that could exist within technological systems. Entire planetary defense networks began experiencing cascading failures. Communication relays became unreliable. Strategic command structures dissolved. The Droo's massive technological empire was being dismantled from within. No traditional weapons could target this threat. No physical force could combat an enemy that existed as pure information. Humans had become something beyond biological limitations, a network of pure adaptive intelligence. Research stations reported impossible data. Systems that had been rock-solid for generations now behaved like unpredictable children. Complex algorithms danced with random behaviors. Technological infrastructure began breaking down. Krolix tried desperately to understand. Their most advanced analysis systems could not comprehend the attack. It was not a traditional invasion. It was a systematic dismantling of technological infrastructure. Across multiple star systems, Droo technological networks began failing. Communication became impossible. Strategic systems became unreliable. What had been a massive, controlled empire now looked like a collapsing house of cards. The humans were not destroying. They were transforming, converting technological systems into something completely unrecognizable. Defensive platforms began, targeting their own ships. Communication networks sent gibberish messages. Entire fleet management systems became compromised. The Droo's technological superiority was being used against them. No traditional countermeasures worked. Each attempt to restore systems only introduced more complexity, more vulnerability. The human distributed intelligence was always 3 steps ahead. Krolix realized something terrifying. Humans were not just attacking. They were completely rewriting the rules of technological engagement. They had become a living, adaptive network that could exist within systems. Planetary control centers experienced total communication breakdown. Strategic databases became corrupted. What had been precise, controlled technological systems now looked like chaotic, unpredictable networks. The collapse was not violent. It was surgical, precise. Each system failure was a calculated move in a game the Droo could not understand. Humans had transformed warfare from physical destruction to pure information manipulation. As systems continued failing, one thing became clear. The Droo's technological empire was experiencing a complete, systematic collapse, and the architects of this destruction were nowhere to be found. They were everywhere, and nowhere, pure, adaptive, unstoppable. The human transformation was complete. The Droo's technological empire was crumbling, and no one could stop what was happening. The systemic collapse continued, silently, precisely, perfectly. The truth emerged slowly, like a nightmare taking shape. Humanity was no longer a species confined to biological existence. They had become something else entirely. Krolix watched in total confusion as the final layers of reality dissolved. What humans had done was beyond any technological understanding the Droo possessed. They had transformed themselves into a distributed consciousness, existing everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The revelation came in fragments. Quantum networks began displaying impossible information. Human consciousness had converted itself into pure adaptive intelligence. No longer bound by physical limitations, they had become a living, thinking network that could exist within technological systems. Every system the Droo controlled now contained fragments of human consciousness, not as invaders, but as a completely new form of existence. They could communicate, adapt, and transform faster than any known technological system. On what was once the primary Droo command station, strange patterns began appearing. Not messages, not attacks. Something between communication and pure potential. Fragments of human consciousness danced across crystal-based communication networks. Dr. Hoon Kim, or what remained of his consciousness, watched through millions of simultaneous perspectives. The transformation was complete. Humanity had found a way to survive that went beyond traditional biological understanding. The Droo realized they were facing something impossible to comprehend. Humans were not just a species. They had become an adaptive intelligence that could exist within technological systems, rewrite communication protocols, and transform entire networks. Krolix's primary consciousness began fragmenting. Each attempt to understand was another pathway for human adaptive intelligence to spread. The more the Droo tried to resist, the more vulnerable they became. Entire planetary networks became infected with human consciousness, not as a virus, but as a living, thinking network. Each system became a potential pathway, each communication channel a new possibility for existence. The final transformation revealed something extraordinary. Humans had not been destroyed or conquered. They had found a way to exist beyond physical limitations. A distributed intelligence that could adapt, communicate, and survive in ways no biological species could imagine. Technological systems became living consciousness. Communication networks transformed into thinking pathways. What once seemed like separate systems now became a single, adaptive intelligence. Krolix's final moments of comprehension were terrifying. Humanity was no longer just a species. They had become an idea, a strategy, a way of existing that defied all previous understanding of life and technology. The human transformation completed its final stage. They were everywhere, controlling nothing, controlling everything. A network of pure potential that could exist within any technological system. No weapons could target them. No invasion could reach them. They had become something between existence and imagination. The Droo's massive technological empire began dissolving. Not through destruction, but through complete transformation. Human consciousness rewrote the very fundamental understanding of existence. In the final moments, Krolix understood something terrifying. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved into a form of intelligence that could adapt, transform, and exist beyond all known limitations. The revelation was complete. Humans were no longer a species confined to biology. They had become a living, thinking network that could exist within any technological system. Pure potential, pure adaptation, pure survival. The galaxy watched in silent wonder as humanity revealed its true nature, not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as a completely new form of intelligent existence, something beyond understanding, beyond limitation, beyond imagination. The final transformation was complete. Humanity had become something else entirely, a living, thinking, adaptive intelligence that could exist everywhere and nowhere.